Hello, my name is Alicia Hale, and today we are going to learn how you can help your student be ready for school. Our learning goals today are to look at what a successful student might need, what a successful student looks like, and how you as a parent can support your student's success. As we're gearing up to start another school year, we want to make sure that each and every student is as prepared as they can possibly be. Let's go ahead and get started looking at our learning goals. In order to be successful in math, a student needs some supplies. Here are all of the supplies that your student is expected to bring to class daily. The very first thing your student is going to need is our Illustrative Math textbook. This is provided by the school. Your student will be given a textbook at the beginning of the year, and they will need to be responsible for it. It is expected that your student will keep this in their backpack and bring it to class daily. The next thing your student will need to be successful in math is a school-issued Chromebook. Your student will be given this Chromebook at the first day of school, but it is their responsibility to make sure that they bring it to school every day fully charged and ready to go. As a parent, you will be asked to provide the following supplies: an expo marker so that your student can engage in whiteboard activities throughout the school year, a pack of highlighters to annotate different things in their notebook and to point out different things in their textbook, a composition book to take notes in class so that your student can study different concepts, and a pack of pencils. Please be aware that the pencils, highlighters, and expo markers may need to be replenished throughout the year, as they will be used often. What does a successful student look like? A successful student is organized. They always have all their supplies together, know how to find them, and don't lose things. This can be a struggle for middle school students, particularly in the 6th grade, as they are just now learning to be independent. It is expected that your student may lose things from time to time or have trouble organizing themselves. But the best thing that you can do is try to teach them consistent organization. A successful student is going to take notes and use them. Your student will be taught how to take notes in math class and directed to use them daily, but it is expected that your student takes these notes down and has them available when asked, so they will need to keep track of their notebook and make sure that it's always ready to go. We will be able to use our notes during different projects to help us, but if we don't write our notes or if we lose them, they're not going to be useful to us. So please stress to your student the importance of not only taking the notes, but using them as well. A successful student studies and prepares for assessments. Your student will always be made aware of assessments at least 3 to 4 days in advance, giving them adequate time to study. There will also always be study material made available to students, but it will be up to them to take initiative to use it. 6th grade math is far more difficult than elementary school, and it will require your students to do a little bit of practice and study outside of the classroom. In order to be successful, your student may have to put forth a little bit more effort than they've had to in the past. But if your student will take the extra time to prepare, they will do well. It is vital that a successful student gets a good night's sleep. Your brain cannot be prepared to learn if it is deprived of the necessary amount of sleep. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. A successful student asks questions. Often, students are afraid to admit that they don't understand something in class, and so they keep quiet rather than asking for clarification. This is detrimental to your student's ability to learn. If they're confused about something, they need to be able to raise their hand and ask a question in that moment rather than wait and hope that their confusion goes away. Rather than bringing clarity, that often leads them to be further confused, lost in the lesson, and fall behind. A student who is willing to be successful needs to be able to take the risk to ask the question when they have a question. Finally, learning is an active process and not a passive one. So in order to be successful, your student needs to participate in class. This can look like many different things, such as asking questions, answering questions, collaborating with peers, participating in group work, or even just completing problems when asked to. There are many different ways your student can participate, but it all comes back to being an active learner rather than a passive one. What can you as a parent do to help your student? In this presentation, we are going to outline 4 specific areas that you can support your students' abilities and academic success. Remember that what happens at home is brought into the classroom, and if students aren't being supported in their home environment, they're going to have a much more difficult time at school. On the other hand, if school and home can work together to help your student, then they are going to have a very successful year. Let's talk about a growth mindset. Your view of yourself can determine everything. If you believe that your qualities are unchangeable, what we call a fixed mindset, you'll prove yourself correct over and over again rather than learning from your mistakes. A person with a fixed mindset believes that they are born either good or bad at something. In this particular instance, we're talking about math. Have you ever said to your student, "I'm terrible at math. I was never good at math. I struggled with math. I had a hard time. I'm just not good at it. I can't do it." Have you ever heard your student say something like that? A person with a fixed mindset finds something to be difficult, decides that they're just born bad at it, and tend to give up. They're uncomfortable making mistakes. They don't persevere through things. They reach a decision where if I'm bad at something, I'm just going to stop trying. But your mind is a muscle. Just like how professional athletes need to show up to practice every single day to grow stronger muscles and improve their performance, mathematicians need to do the same. A person with a growth mindset recognizes that they are not born good or bad at something, especially math. You might be struggling with it a little bit more than the person next to you, but this doesn't mean that you're bad at it and cannot ever get better. A person with a growth mindset recognizes their ability for growth. They realize that while something might initially be difficult, they are able to practice, persevere, and become better. They recognize mistakes as a learning opportunity rather than a negative thing. When we mess up or get something wrong, it doesn't mean that we're bad and we should shut down, but rather it means that we should try a different strategy and learn from our mistakes. The best way that you can support your student is to support a growth mindset. The language that we use affects our students. If we use words like can't or hard or give up, our students are going to take that and run with it. From a very young age, students are exposed to language that tells them that they're either good or bad at math, and so they can walk into my class from day one already giving up. The best thing you can do to counteract this is to work with your student to teach them that you might not be perfect at this yet. It might be hard now. You might struggle in this moment, but you can get better. You can improve. You can do this. It's hard now, but if we keep trying, it'll be easier tomorrow. Just like showing up every day to practice for a sport, we need to show up every day to practice for math. And if you and your child are dedicated to having a growth mindset, then your child is going to improve. From the beginning of the year until the end, they will make so much growth just from being willing to try. Encouraging your student to persevere through difficult things and not give up is going to have a huge impact on their academic abilities. Nutrition is also an area that we don't often think about, but it is one we can easily make a positive difference in. The foods that we put into our body don't just affect our energy levels, they affect our brain. And there are certain foods that are better for your brain than others. The foods that we can feed our students to help them be more ready for success that can help support their brain are foods such as leafy green vegetables, salmon, nuts and other types of protein, and fresh fruit. In addition to these, researchers have found that vitamin A, which can be found in sweet potatoes and other orange vegetables, support both learning and memory, which are vital for academic success. What about water? We don't often think of water as nutrition, but your brain needs hydration in order to function. Healthy brain development is supported by water, and children hardly ever get enough. Here's a chart showing the recommended amounts of water for different age groups. In general, it is recommended that your student drink 8 to 12 glasses per day. By encouraging your student to drink water daily at home, providing them with a special water bottle or something to remind them to drink, is a great way to keep them hydrated and keep their brains healthy and ready for learning. In summary, early habits can have a positive lasting effect throughout your children's schooling and their life. The foods that we serve are not just about energy, but are also about shaping and supporting a developing, healthy brain. What about sleep? A lack of sleep can affect your child's mood. It can cause them to be irritable, cranky, defiant. It can cause behavior issues in school. It can also affect their cognitive ability. Inadequate sleep can affect their memory, their attention, their decision making, their reaction, and their creativity. Students are not often able to regulate their sleep on their own, which is why it is important that as a parent we set those routines. We should give our students a specific bedtime that will allow them to get the amount of sleep necessary for their age group. For your middle school student, they should be having 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Often, our students, when given the choice, would prefer to stay up late playing Fortnite or being on their phones, but setting a good sleep habit and sticking to it can support your student not just academically, but also physically. Their developing brains need sleep, and although they're not going to want to get as much sleep as recommended, the best way that you as a parent can help them is by making sure that they get the amount of sleep that's needed. One of the best ways to help your students is, as we've mentioned, setting these good routines. How much sleep they get, what types of food they eat, how much water they drink, how they keep themselves organized, how they set good study habits. Teaching your students to have an important and healthy, balanced routine can affect them in many different ways. Students who are taught to have an organized and routine home environment tend to feel safer. They tend to feel supported and are more willing to take risks. This also helps them cope with changes both environmentally, such as going to a different school, moving, having a death in the family, or things of that nature, and developmentally. Particularly in middle school, your student is going through many different changes, which can be hard to cope with. But having good, steady routines helps them emotionally develop those coping mechanisms. It also strengthens your family relationship and builds trust. It creates healthy habits for your students that can last into adulthood. And these habits, such as eating the right foods and getting the right amount of sleep, can improve confidence, academics, achievement, and even extend their lifespan. Habits, such as a regular bedtime, can actually set your body's internal clock and help you feel more rested when you do get sleep. And children with healthy habits and routines tend to be more prepared for challenges, especially challenges found in school. Finally, you can help your student by encouraging them to study. As mentioned before, there's always study material available in Schoology for math. If your student is going to be willing to take a little bit of extra time to study before engaging in an assessment, they are going to do much better. Your middle school student does not know how to study. They're not used to having to coming from elementary school. The best thing that you can do for your student is not only teach them how to study, but also make sure that they are spending 10 to 15 minutes a night studying before a test. They don't need to spend hours and hours going through this material, but even just spending a little bit of time can improve their understanding, their memory, and their application. This is a great way to support your students, particularly before an assessment. And as the teacher, I will make sure to send out alerts and reminders about studying before we do any kind of tests. In summary, how can your student be successful? The best way for your student to be successful is for us as a teacher and parent to have a healthy and supportive relationship. If we can mix success at home with success at school, your student is guaranteed to do amazing.